All right, in this video, I want to do two things here. I want to write out some steps for you in terms of how to find an inverse, and then I also want to use those steps simultaneously to solve our first inverse problem. And for our first one, we'll start simple. We'll start with a linear function. Then in the future videos, we'll do more complicated ones. But let's see here. So how to find an inverse. So I'll write down a step, and then I'll do it at the same time on the example here, the 5x minus 2. So step 1. Let's replace f of x with y. Strictly speaking, you don't have to do this. It's just my personal preference. I think y is a lot easier to deal with. It's less writing. It's less convoluted on paper. So I like to replace f of x with y as my first step here. Step 2. Replace every x with a y and every y with a x. So let's see here. So I'm replacing every single x I see with a y and replacing every single y I see with an x. And so what I'm going to do here is on the left-hand side I have a y, so I'm going to replace it with x. On the right-hand side, I had a 5x. I'm going to replace that with 5y. And the minus 2 didn't have an x or anything attached to it, so I'll leave that alone. There's my step 2. I like to invert all the x's and y's. Just flip-flop all the x's and y's that you see. Step 3, solve for y. So I'm going to solve for y here. I'm going to add 2 to both sides, and then divide by 5. That will give me y by itself, which then allows me to do the final step, which is replace y with f inverse of x. And that'll wrap up this problem here. X plus 2 or 5 is equal to f inverse of x. And let's take a quick look at that just for a second. So originally, our function was the function 5x minus 2. So we were taking x, we were multiplying it by 5, and we were then afterward subtracting 2 from it. In its inverse, we're first adding 2 to x, and then dividing by 5. So not only are we doing the opposite operation, addition, subtraction are opposites in terms of operations, multiplication, division, same relationship there. We're also changing the order though. Instead of multiplying by 5, then subtracting 2, we're first adding 2, then dividing by 5 to finish off the function there. So just, kind of a rough idea of how these inverses work. You're just responsible for finding them, but I think it's a nice example to see actually what's going on with these inverses. And I'll go ahead and throw in another one on this video. It's a little bit shorter than I expected it to be, so let's do another example on this video. I'll use another more so simple function and then save the more complicated ones for a separate video. All right, so let's look at, for our second example, let's say the function, and we want to find the inverse of f of x is equal to 4x to the third plus 6. All right, so first step, I'm going to replace f of x with y. Second step, I'm going to invert all the x's and y's. Third step, I need to solve for y. So let's see here, I can subtract 6 from both sides. And then I can divide both sides by 4. And then I can take the cube root of both sides in order to get y by itself. And as soon as you have y by itself, that is the inverse. I'm going to go ahead and label it as f inverse of x.